Hello, everybody. My name is Aldo. My team members are Dennis and Tim, and together we're working on our senior capstone to create the AIARE application. So, who is AIARE? AIARE is the American Institution for Avalanche Research and Education. And why are they motivated to do this? Well, I have to introduce Dr. Chad Thatcher. He's an accomplished guide, educator, administrator of Outdoor International and Adventure Education for over 25 years. As an instructor with the American Institution for Avalanche Research and Education, he strives to provide education on avalanche terrain to aid in the effort of increasing safety through knowledge. As part of AIARE's approach to avalanche safety and awareness, a field guide is provided so outdoor enthusiasts can plan a trip, discuss safety aspects, and record observations during the trip, as well as other things that we will go further into. Our mission with him is to provide an intuitive, easy-to-use iOS application version of the field guide. A key aspect we are aiming for is making the recorded observations easier to share with others, so they may be better educated about an area they intend to travel to. Avalanche awareness and safety are the top goals of Dr. Thatcher and AIARE. With increased capability of sharing observations, we believe this will aid in that effort. So, what are the current disadvantages right now? Well, the field guide is a paper field guide. So, it's really difficult to share an observation. Also, they have to accommodate for carrying a book in the backcountry with a pen or pencil in a limited amount of space. Also, the book contains a limited amount of space. Although there's many pages to record observations, there is a limit. And when that limit does come up, they have to buy another book. So that means an additional expense. Students are required to purchase this book for $25 for its course. So, what are some of the major requirements for application? There's also other requirements, like making sure we include any informational material that can be used in making observations, such as sky condition abbreviations and precipitation type and rate. So in the image below, you can see that there's abbreviations used for clear, overcast, rain, snow. Also, other informational material such as danger levels and travel advice. Finally, to share an observation, users do require an internet connection or to download one as well. So, what are some of the main features of our application? Well, to start with, users are able to plan their trip. And it's not just one, they can plan multiple at a time and then go on that trip whenever they decide to. They'll be able to reference current environmental conditions, and this consists of being able to click on a link that takes you straight to avalanche.org. Avalanche.org records some environmental conditions for some locations, and users will be able to pull that location up through the link. They'll be able to view emergency resources, and for example, that means they can look at the emergency contact information for the group members that are on a specific trip. And after they made observations, they can go back and view an observation, or they can edit it, or they can edit the trip record and view it as well. They'll be able to view the field guide in the PDF file format in case anybody wants to go back and look at it. They'll be able to view and modify the checklist. So if a user decides a specific trip requires different equipment, they can add that to their checklist before they go on there. So when they decide to go on that trip, they'll pull up the checklist and make sure they don't forget anything, all while not being able to delete the default checklist that every user requires before going on a trip like this. They'll be able to share observations through the means of uploading and downloading from the hosted database. And finally, they'll be able to record observations, and my teammate Tim will go further into that and give a peek of what that might look like in our final application.
Hello, my name is Tim, and I'm here to talk with you about one of the core features of the AIARE application, and that is record observations. You might be asking yourself, what exactly is an observation? Well, an observation is a consistent, detailed record. Here's an example of what an observation looks like out of the paper field guide. So we have several areas of data input, such as site location, where was this observation taken, and a brief description. What was the elevation when you took the observation? How far up the mountain were you? The air temperature, the wind speed. All of these are crucial data points that are extremely helpful to have when sharing these observations amongst enthusiasts. We also have a nice graph. This graph can help you with snow depth levels and kind of the hand hardness. How hard is the snow? And all of that is another crucial data point when recording observations. Two other areas is the key results and the significance. So at this point in time, let's go ahead and take a look at where the AIARE application is as it sits today and kind of get an idea of how we're approaching the record observation feature. I'd like to take a brief moment of time real quickly and talk about something we did in Xcode. So we're using storyboards, which makes it rather nice to help design some of our screens and how they flow. But what we decided to do, as we continued adding more and more screens, and we didn't want to have kind of a huge storyboard that just kept expanding infinitely, basically. So what we did was we created a directory and called it storyboards. And then we went ahead, like our record observation storyboard flow is right there. And here's our link to it. So we're able to, when we go to work on it, pinpoint individual flows, which makes it really nice. A little more organized. So I felt like showing that off here just a little bit. But let's get back to the application and the record observations flow. So our goal here was to get pretty close to this. But how do we do that in an application form? That's one, intuitive. Two, meets all of our data points. We're collecting the same information that we're seeking. So what we've done at this point is kind of parsed it a little bit. So if I click on record observations, we'll see that we can initially start by putting who were the observers. Then we can put our site location and a description and our test objective. As we move forward to the next screen, here we get a lot of our little data points. And these are right here. All we've done is put them on their own little screen. So that way, once we get here, they can focus on the wind speed, the elevation, the sky condition, just those precise figures that we're looking for. On the next page is where we have our graph. Now, the graph, if it's new to you, it may seem a little tricky. So what we've decided to do is put a little tips section. So if we click on that, we're going to get some ideas behind the graph. What do some of the informations mean? What is F, 4F, 1F? What's that all mean? As we progress next term in developing and finalizing this application, we're going to fill this out more and make it more user-friendly to read. Then we hit next, and we get to our final page. This is where we're going to put our key results and the significance from the observation. From here, all we have to do is hit submit, and that will save the observation locally in persistent storage. And then later, when you're back on a Wi-Fi connection or a cellular connection, you can upload that observation to the shared database so others might be able to view your observation. So at this point, I'm going to hand it off to another member of our group, Dennis, and he's going to go over some of the tools and technologies that we've used and are going to be using.
Hi, I'm Dennis, and now we will be discussing the tools and technologies that this application will use. So this app will be built for the iOS operating system, for primarily oriented towards iPhones, and it will be developed using Apple's Xcode integrated development environment and that software suite. And for developing the user interfaces within the app, we're going to be using storyboards. And we're also going to use the PDFKit API for displaying elements from PDF files. And for version control of the source code, we will be using Git. And also for persistent local storage of data that is relational data, we'll be using SQLite. And for remote storage, which is used for to allow users to share observations, we'll be using a remote database, and we've chosen to use Google's remote relational database hosting for that. And in the future, we're considering, instead of using just a relational hosting at Google, to switch to Firebase. So that's a possibility. And then we're also likely going to switch from primarily using storyboards for the interfaces to using Swift UI, which makes things much more streamlined and simplifies a lot of things when using version control with the source code. And we have these following tests planned. We're going to test whether or not a user can successfully create a trip, whether or not they can record observations and view current environmental conditions. And then we would also test if they could view all the emergency resources. And that would include things like the emergency contact numbers that the user would have previously inputted. And then we test, can you view and edit recorded observations? And then can you successfully view the PDF version of the field guide as well? And then also, can you change the trip checklist? Can you add items to it, remove those items that you added to it, and that kind of thing. And then also there's everything with the remote hosted database. So can you upload observations to that database? Can you pull an observation or download it back from that database? And that's used for sharing observations between users. And so regarding the division of labor, every person on our team had a specific responsibility to keep up with. So for example, Tim was the main person regarding communication, direct communication with the client. Aldo was responsible for note-taking during those meetings with the client, with those occasional meetings we had with him, and I'm responsible for taking notes during meetings with our project manager. And then also every 2 weeks, we hand off the designated leader role to the next person. We rotate it around, so every person is a leader for 2 weeks and it rotates around. And then whoever is the leader would be in charge of updating the Git project board with the current tasks that need to be worked on and are going to be worked on and have finished. And then also the leader is in charge of turning in assignments and uploading them, as well as just making sure the team is aware of what's due in the coming week. And then as the project progressed, each of us have picked different features that each of us are mainly in charge of in the app. So I've got a certain subset of features I have, and each other person has their own features they're working on too. And this was done mainly to make documentation easier and organization of the work. And in the future, we're going to make the leader role be a lot more defined. And so the leader will communicate a lot more regarding deadlines and send more communications each week by a Wednesday regarding the weekly tasks, and that will be in preparation for our Friday meetings. So we meet at least once a week as a team every Friday. So the AIARE iOS Field Guide app is going to aid to increase safety through knowledge, which is our goal. And the data collected from users who use this app to record observations from the environment, that data has the potential to benefit a lot of outdoor enthusiasts and businesses alike, such as Mount Ashland. And then next term, we plan to implement more of the user interface, and we're going to hook up the cloud database and finalize all the local persistent storage and make sure all the security aspects of databases are addressed as well and sanitize input. And so next term, we're really going to dive into the implementation of this project. And that's the plan.